one's yours, yeah. Okay, let's call the Wednesday, April 15th, 2026 meeting of the Falls Church City Planning Commission to order. Mr. Trainer, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Polinsky?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Comont?
I'm here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Ms. Friedlander?
Here.
Mr. Kravinsky?
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Krasner is absent, but we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Any comments on the agenda? If not, can I have a motion to adopt it?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Summary of written correspondence. I think we had a couple things in the packet.
Yeah, the Bike Falls Church wrote to the commission, submitted two separate petitions, both that were budget related, advocating for different transportation improvements and bicycling and pedestrian safety items in the upcoming budget.
Great, thank you. Appreciated including those. Do we have any in-person petitions tonight?
No, Chair.
Okay. Okay, so that, I think, brings us to our action items. The first is the Oak Park Subdivision Amendment Sewer Easement. Welcome, Mr. Zhang.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Henry Zhang with the Planning Department. This subdivision application in front of you is very limited in scope. Basically, it's to amend the sewer easement boundary. The Planning Commission is requested to hold a public hearing and take final action on the proposed amendment on the final plat of subdivision of the Oak Park to accommodate as-built conditions on the subject site located at 150 North Oak Street. Just a quick look back, this is the first T1 zone site plan for 12 townhomes approved by the Planning Commission back on May 1st, 2024. Following the approval, the site grading work began in December 2024, and the site infrastructure completed in the first quarter of 2025. And the construction of the townhome basically lasted the whole 2025. The final COs were issued in February of this year, basically. Currently, 12 townhomes are all occupied. The reason for this amendment, because a few errors happened. One of the manhole constructed outside the boundary of the easement. On the exhibit number 1, you will hear this is the as-built site conditions. The red dot on the close to the end of the alley, that's the new location. And the black dot, that's the original approved manhole location. This proposed amendment does not have any impact on the previous finding of approval, which will remain in full force and effect. On the exhibit number 2, you will see two graphics. The upper one is previously approved sewer easement to be vacated, and the proposed new sewer easement is on the lower graphic. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the proposed amendment and the motion. This concludes this.
Comments?
I assume there's no impediment to people going up and down that driveway,
No, sir.
because it's flat. I went by and looked, and it seemed like I couldn't see it hardly. It was just invisible, but.
Yes, sir.
Just wanted to
Nobody
make
will
sure.
be able to see it because it's not on the public right away, because within the alley between the two rows of the townhome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? I mean, it's a pretty straightforward item. If there are no other questions or discussion, would somebody like to make the motion that staff has drafted at the top of the staff report?
I can make the motion.
Great, thank you, Mr. Kravinsky.
Proposed motion, whereas the Planning Commission finds that the proposed subdivision application meets all the applicable requirements of the City Subdivision Regulations, Chapter 38, and Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 48, as they are currently applied, and the subdivision application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and whereas the proposed amendment is previously approved sewer easement on the final plan will accommodate the as-built conditions on the subject site, and now therefore I move that the Planning Commission grant approval of the final plat with the revised sewer easement in the alley of the 12-unit townhome development that has been constructed and occupied.
Is there a second?
Second?
Mr. Duncan with a second. Could we have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Trainer?
Mr. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Friedlander?
Yes.
Mr. Kravinsky?
Yes.
And Chair Coman?
Yep.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out tonight. Okay, that brings us to our second item, which is our minutes from the March 18th meeting. I had one small change. Did anybody else have any changes?
I had a couple of very little things. What line's yours?
Let's see. It was on the urban design master plan. In my comments, I also recommended, let's see, it says, considering ADA, universal design, commercial ground floor activation, the public realm, and city gateways. I had also included in my list bicycle infrastructure, or bicycle infrastructure, or bike facilities, and shade. Yeah, thank you. What was yours?
Mine's minor on line 43. I believe we want discussed instead of discussion.
Yeah, I had a comment on that too, but go ahead.
Go ahead. Mine next one is a little further down.
All right, well, on line 43, it says, Mr. Stevens, I think it's supposed to be discussed,
Yeah.
the proposed, and I don't think it was quite net zero. That would have been good if that design was net zero, but I think it was just low emissions, so it would be the proposed low emission design.
Okay. And my other one is line 73. I meant to look it up to make sure, but if something is complementary to something else, is it E? P-L-E-M-E-N-T-A-R-Y?
It's with an E, I think.
It's with an E.
Yeah.
Even if it complements it, it's complementary.
Well, I mean, maybe the materials speak, I don't know.
Yeah. Complimentary. That's all I had. With those changes, I move adoption of the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Trainer, for capturing those. I think that brings us to our work session, which is 815 West Broad Street, site plan. Welcome, Jeff.
Good evening, Chair Comont and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Jeff Holland with the planning staff. Tonight, yeah, Jack, if you can bring up that letter, that'd be helpful. Thanks. Tonight, staff is requesting feedback and recommendation on a new site plan application for the redevelopment of a dental office at 815 West Broad Street. The subject site is located across from St. James Catholic School and directly west of the Broad Falls mixed-use project or building, and is the current site of Broadway Dental Associates. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing structure to construct a 3-story office building and expand the existing business. Given the constraints of the site with the size and the shape, the ground level will be primarily surface parking and a drive aisle. The drive lane and spaces will be partially covered by 2 floors, including 10,466 square feet of office space to be used by the dental office. City staff wrapped up its first review on Monday, the 13th, so 2 days ago, and generated the list of comments requesting items such as, but not limited to, parking calculation correction and the request for a parking modification, missing infrastructure detail and stormwater design issues, and then also landscaping and canopy compliance. These comments were transmitted to the applicant team yesterday on April 14th. As part of the staff review, we look at the proposal's conformance with the city's comprehensive plan and the relevant areas of the West Broad Street Small Area Plan. The proposal addresses several strategies from Chapter 4 of the comp plan that asks to promote thoughtful redevelopment of commercial and office areas to strengthen economic stability and enhance the city's character. The West Broad Street Small Area Plan also promotes redevelopment like this, but with a greater focus on varied building materials, ensuring sanitary sewer capacity, and expanding tree canopy coverage. Last week, the Architectural Advisory Board met to discuss this proposed project and provided a recommendation to the designated agent with requests that the applicant find ways to enhance the blank wall on the west facade and incorporate some variation throughout the long rows of windows along the east facade. I do think I have that mixed up on the letter here, but this is right. Timing on the application is under the 40-day review window in place for site plans. An official submission date of March 27th, 2026 means that the designated agent action deadline is May 5th, 2026. That's it for my staff report. I do know that there are several folks from the applicant team that are online that can help answer any questions, and I'll stay here too.
Okay, great. Would the applicant like to make any comments, or the team like to make any comments before the Planning Commission asks questions?
Surely, Madam Comment, my name is Shafi Mukwadin, and I'm part of the engineering and development team. We try very hard to be consistent with the small area plan as well as the comprehensive plan. And as Mr. Holloman mentioned, the constraints of the site lend itself, we were limited to what we could do with this site because of how it was configured. So we did the best we could there, and we want to enhance even more as we discussed it with the architectural review team, and we're here to do whatever we have to do to make this a model project for the city of Falls Church.
Great, thank you. I think that's our shared goal. All right, well, any questions or comments? Would anybody like to kick us off? Are there particular areas that you want more information on?
I think general questions I had, and thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate you being here with us. Is there, aside from the dental office, is there already companies that are intending to lease the space, or do you have companies intending to lease the space there?
No, not at all, sir. This is only contained for the dental professionals and everyone that's connected with that. So it's all inclusive for just the dental office and the dental business.
Okay, so this isn't an extra office space on top of a dental office?
Not at all, not at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me just jump in on that with a little more specific question. Thank you for joining us tonight. So the current dental operation occupies about 900,000 square feet. Is that what the materials say? And the new building will be 10,000 square feet. So that's a considerable expansion of the current business, if it's the current business that aims to go into this space. Do you have any thoughts about that as far as scaling up the traffic that you get there now compared to what you would hope to get to fill up the seats in a 10,000 square foot dental facility?
excellent question. We asked that same question when we were designing this. And the answer that came back to us from the client was they have 2 locations and they spread their clients out under these 2 locations. But what they would like to do is bring everyone to this one location and stagger it based upon appointments as well as the staffing to take care of all of their clients. So they feel that if they do this new facility and propose this new facility, that they'll have increased business and they will not alienate any of their other clients. So it's only for the dental clients for the 2 locations that they have.
The current availability of parking on the site is how many spaces?
We showed, are you asking me or are you
Yes,
asking?
yeah, I assume you
Okay.
probably know it better than,
Yeah.
better than anybody else. The staff knows a lot, but
They do a great job, though. They do a great job. We showed 24 spaces. The requirement was 31. And the reason we had that 19% reduction is because in discussions with the client themselves, they thought that they would not need the 31 spaces. In fact, they thought that 24 spaces was more than they needed based upon how they schedule their technicians and their doctors and they schedule their appointments. So we scratched our head on it and we trusted their word on it, and we actually asked them to do a little chart so that we can know the timing. And they simply said, we schedule based upon what the needs are, and we don't overload any of our technicians or doctors. We're not doing that. So we took their word for it.
okay, I should have been more specific in my question. Let me return to that last point you made after going back to the first one. The current use of the dental facility has how many parking spots, and do we have any notion or data that show what the fill rate, the fill percentage of those current parking spots is? In other words, right now, if I go to the dentist at your place, am I going to run into a parking lot in the front or back, mostly in the back, that has ample room, or am I going to, we want things to be as tight as they can because we don't want to waste space on parking, but we do not have a lot of other options along that stretch of Broad Street for parking. If it isn't self-contained on your lot, then it isn't. So back to the question, do we have any count and usage data on the current parking lot? That would help us judge whether we can trust what we're hearing or we need to verify it.
Sure. And that, again, well, I'm not the owner of the property. We are the developers and the professionals to help the client get to the finish line on this. But we asked that same question, if they could give us some data to show that. But if you were to go anytime, you will find that the parking lot, 1, is not full, and 2, you'll always have a space because of how they schedule their appointments, is what I was
Okay.
told
All
today.
right, that's,
If can I add something?
sure. Where are
Yes,
you?
please,
So,
Bashir.
I'm Bishoy. I'm a civil engineer working with Shafi in this project. So, if your question, how many parking we have right now, the existing condition showing 3 parking in the front, and there's an asphalt pad in the back. So I'm not sure if they're using it for the parking or not. So technically, we can say we have only 3 right now in the front.
I'm looking at Google Maps, and it looks like there are at least like 3 or 4, maybe 5 vehicles parked in the back from the satellite view. So, but I think you're right. It looks like there are 3 in the front, and then there's some number in the rear of the property. I think it would be helpful I think one of our recommendations to the designated agent could be to have a table or request a table with the current parking availability and utilization. And then, please go ahead.
If you open sheet 3, the existing condition, you will see that we have emphasize that we have 3 parking spots in the front, but there is no marking or anything. There is asphalt parking in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, I went over and looked at that back parking lot, it's pretty bleak
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not striped, but they're being used as, it's a space that you could park in.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have other questions, but I'll just ping one right now since I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, you go.
It's the discussion that you've instigated on the interval scheduling. So Danny and I are going to go to the dentist, and I'm going to be done at 11 o'clock. What time is Danny coming for the next appointment if he's next in line after me? And the reason I ask is, the reason that maybe you know the answer, maybe you don't. We have learned in doing developments around town of many different sizes that there is ample parking for, the person who is in the chair at the time his or her appointment is scheduled. What we don't have ample parking for is the person who comes in after them and is 10 minutes early because the person in the chair hasn't left yet. And this is especially true when it comes to staff. Your dental hygienist is on shift at 8 o'clock and runs till 2. And the next one starts at 2 and runs, well, the second one's going to be there at 1:30 just to make sure he or she's on time. And we don't have the parking to accommodate that sort of shift turn. So this is the first opportunity I can think of on a building of reasonable scale. It's a pretty good-sized building for Falls Church to make sure that we're not going to have people complaining, frustrated, parking who knows where in the apartment parking lot, which is going to get them towed. If you've got some magic interval parking formula that you're confident will work for patients as well as staff, I feel like that's something that we'd like to know about, so we'd like to apply it to other future developments that may come down the road.
That's excellent. And that's an excellent question and statement. And I think that we could work with the owner, and based upon their 2 locations, we can put a matrix together which could show that and could include the patients as well as staffing and the time intervals for those that come early, and then those, well, hopefully they're not late, but for those that come early, and making sure that there's ample parking for that. So we can work on that matrix.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Danny, for letting me cut in.
Yeah, no, not a problem. Mr. Duncan's out of luck because I'm always late, so I'm going to be taking up space in his appointment before he ever gets there. Question for you. I did some back of the napkin math, and I'm looking at 3 or 4 chairs, dental chairs, in the current 900 square footish building. And then I'm guessing, 20, do you know how many dental chairs would be in the new building? I'm guessing 5,000, half the square footage is the actual area.
I don't want to guess, but I would like to ask the owner how many specific chairs between the 2 locations would she like to have,
right,
or plan on having at this location, because that would be part of our matrix as well.
Yeah, and this is an adult dental facility, or is it pediatric as well?
No, my understanding is it's adult, but if it is pediatric, I'm going to have to get more input on that, but it's supposed to be adult.
And so, Mr. Holler, and the formality of this gets me every time. But the question for you is this site plan for review or for approval? Is this a special exception site plan, or is it a by right?
No, it's by right use.
So it's just a commentary.
We're providing recommendations to the designated
To Matt,
agent
yeah.
on
Well, yeah.
what
So,
he should-
but the question is, does Mr. Matuzig? This is like an honest question. Does he have a decision to make, or is this just?
Yeah, he has a decision to make if they are requesting a variance or a whatever.
A waiver?
Waiver, thank you, for the parking.
So it's the parking waiver
That would be
that
something
is-
that he would need to
Got
grant.
it,
So
okay.
they need to provide evidence that that these 24 spaces that they're proposing is sufficient. I believe it's 28 that's needed. I'm not sure what the 31.
31.
31 is needed?
Yeah, well, that's what
It's 28.
28?
I think, well, there.
So a little bit of confusion on how many.
There was some confusion
Yeah,
because I
if you
think that they
open-
used a different, the wrong parking ratio on their initial submittal. On the sheet itself, it says one space for every 450 square feet. For a dental use, it's one per 300 square feet.
Which itself is pretty arbitrary.
It is all, yeah, there are.
And so, and then there's also that, the 1,200 square feet that, for office uses, that gets kind of taken out of that equation. So part of staff's comments was that 31 spaces are needed. They are providing 24. So I think it's about a 19% reduction they'd be looking for. And I also just wanted to mention too, is that part of that parking reduction request, they would need to submit a TDM, a narrative or justification. And so we did ask for that on a next submittal. And that would hopefully clarify things like, how many seats maybe they have, dental seats that they have, how many customers come in and go and during the day. And also, a lot of these uses use, they're close to a certain bus stop or they have bike parking or, so.
Yes.
That would all be clarified on a TDM.
Great, thank you, Mr. Holland.
Yeah.
Mr. Kravinsky, sorry, were you,
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
okay. Go ahead,
Are you, I didn't,
I'm all good.
okay, good.
your turn.
So just to clarify here, this is by right, no waivers, no variances. The only thing that the designated agent is going to rule on is an exception for parking once he reviews the transportation demand management.
Requested it. But they will be requesting a 19% parking reduction.
19%. But that's the only thing that is any variance to the code.
Yes.
That,
sir.
Otherwise, the designated agent wouldn't have necessarily any grounds for disapproving the site plan.
The designated agent does go off of, your recommendation, but also staff's recommendation. Right now, given the long list of comments that staff has provided, this current application, I would say, is not approvable, only because, there's certain stormwater requirements that they need to meet, zoning requirements that we need on the site plan. And so right now, I would say that this is not something that staff can recommend to the designated agent.
Because of missing elements in the application.
Yes,
Not
code
necessarily variances to code.
Right.
No, but they may need to, once
That
the whole
comes
list
in.
of shortfalls are identified, then they may need to come in for waivers, yeah.
So let me just try and understand what the decision is on the parking.
Okay.
So we'll make a recommendation to the designated agent. The designated agent will review the transportation, the TDM, and make a decision as to whether he recommends reducing the number of parking spaces or not, based on our recommendations, based on his judgment. I'm a little confused as to what his criteria are in terms of evaluating that reduction and whether that 19% is acceptable or not. When I look at, for instance, the updates to the code associated with the new the naming of the designated agent, when you look at, for instance, the landscaping code, it's very well defined as to what his left and right limits are. But in this case, let's say the designated agent looked at the TDM and said, and it justified, he wouldn't do this, but let's say he said, all of my patients are bikers, so I don't need any parking. He could, in fact, accept that rationale. There's no left and right limits that says he's not allowed to accept that rationale.
I think that the designated agent would probably, use his best judgment on that, and
Yes.
also be, he would take into account what the comp plan says and what the small area plans say. He takes all of that into account and what the code says. Now, if they are code required to have some parking, and so the reduction is just because really it's always very vague. Sometimes, given the use, they don't need as much parking. For example, one of the site plans that was approved last year for Econized Closet,
That's a great example.
that one had a lot of square footage, but didn't need as much parking because there wasn't very many customers coming to the site at any given time.
Right.
So I think the Planning Commission was ultimately the one that approved that one, but you all were able to say, well, look, that makes a lot of sense. They don't need as much parking because of this.
Okay.
So, yes.
We made a subjective decision that made sense.
Yes.
And we approved it as the Planning Commission.
Yes.
Right now, that decision process is with the designated agent, and
Yes.
he can, there are no specific code to say 19% is acceptable, but 21% is not.
I do believe somewhere there is some more guidance on that as far as what is, getting into the territory of being a variance. I'm not sure exactly where I read that, but I do think that once it gets to a certain extent, then there will probably be a BZA requirement. And
I was just looking at the designated agent responsibilities.
Sure.
That are in the code now, and it really just says that he has to take, carpool and van pool spaces into account, and bike share stations into account. He looks at the transportation plan, and then he ultimately makes a decision
Yes.
based on his best judgment.
yes.
Yeah. And the only thing that I would suggest is if we're going to give that authority to the designated agent, we may want to suggest that the code be a little bit more specific as it is with the landscaping section to say, here's what he's allowed to do and here's what he's not allowed to do. Not that we don't trust the designated agent, but, it does seem as though he should have some left and right limits as to what he's allowed to approve and not approve.
I think it's been before council for a couple of years now, the intention to go through and kind of refresh our code on parking. It's just something they haven't gotten to yet, but I think the intention is there to do that.
Yeah. I mean, well, and that's good.
Well, I think the recognition is that the current requirements that we have are from ages past. It doesn't kind of reflect, kind of current behavior, but trying to change those requirements is, I'm sure, not an easy task, so.
But if we're going to put the approval, take it outside of the public review process, such as the Planning Commission and a public hearing for approval, then I think we need to make sure our code reflects what, in fact, the designated agent could do. It should be part of his, whenever we get to it. That was my only comment.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Can I just piggyback on
Oh,
this
sure.
for just a minute? I think it's really important to take into account that the example that we used for Econize, they had their occupancy plans, their charts, their full floor plans, so it was very easy for us to understand what is going into this structure. This, on the other hand, I do this for a living, and I was really challenged to understand what this was actually going to be developed as until I got the staff letter yesterday. Thank you for putting that together, because I was literally combing through stuff trying to understand what's the overall square footage growth. How do we justify, the square footage growth? How many dentists, excuse me, are actually going to be practicing? And I think, to your point, the occupancy of that square footage starts to dictate the need. And without that information, it is subjective, right? You could say anything you want. So I think it's really important that even if it's by right, that the site plan has to have some basic information in order to even make it through the first review. I mean, this client is clearly, or this applicant is clearly putting a substantial investment into this property and the redevelopment of it, and it's something that is going to be in our city and affecting precedent for future development for the next 50 years, potentially, right? If they're using the right materials that are going to last, things like that. So I think it's really important that there's some clarity to what we're actually reviewing and agreeing to saying, yes, this is actually by right. It fits into the code, it fits into the zoning. It was really hard to even see that there were setbacks until I got the documentation from the city staff. So, I mean, it was really surprising just the lack of detail that came across. I mean, the most detailed item was the trash enclosure, which is that's like in the back, at the very back and buried, on the site. It's not even something that would be part of the pedestrian experience. So it's like really hard to take a look at this and really understand, does this actually meet the comprehensive plan intent? Mm-hmm. I don't know, because I'm fully behind what the AAB recommendations were, which was more detail to the materials, specification of them, the color of them, what's the quality of them, right? I know it's by right and it's all something that they can do, but give us the bare minimum. This isn't even the bare minimum to make an educated choice, decision on how to recommend acceptance of this. So, it sounds pretty harsh, but the amount of investment that is going into this, it's such a waste of everybody's time and resources, staff-wise, boards and commission-wise, and for the applicant to have to go through this process again, right, because they don't have enough information. So, that's that, and that, all of that aside, I do have some questions just about overall how the site is working. The easement that is shown here, that is the driveway easement that is shared with the adjacent property. How does that work with the new garage setup and parking setup? Is that still noted as a shared easement on the new set of drawings? So what happens to that other property's other easement? I'm assuming that big horseshoe driveway is a shared easement.
Yeah, we looked at that as ourselves. So when it comes on to the owner's property, we were looking for a vacation at that point of the easement as it relates to the property. And once it comes onto the property, if it's needed to utilize any part of the travel access way, then so be it. But that horseshoe was something that we looked at ourselves, and we just thought it was. It seemed to be that whoever owned the adjacent parcel was looking to do something together, but then these were split, and it would then be treated differently. So that's a little challenge that we have to have, but it's vacation of what's on the current site.
So I would assume then that that other property owner is being consulted about that. I don't know. I'm not a zoning person. I don't know.
There's outreach whenever we do any of these site plan applications. There will be outreach on this, so, yeah.
Okay.
That was one of my questions. So I think the adjacent property is Botanological.
Yes.
Has that owner voiced any opinions about this development, or have you gotten
not yet
any
to
input?
staff, no.
But you've reached out to that owner, and that owner...
We have not yet. There is a certain, there's a 10-day window before the designated agent action. So I'll be noticing them actually tomorrow. That's on my list of to-do things. Yeah. It was anyway, even before you asked that question.
I still have more.
Okay,
Is
go
that
ahead.
okay?
Yeah.
All right. For Hold on, I lost. So I'm 100% behind the AAB's recommendations. I think we do, and I did read their frustrations in the process and the lack of detail that's part of this submission, and I don't know if it's actually a complete submission, because I saw the application and it said, oh, it's there, and I couldn't find information. So I was surprised to see that there were no buffers. I do appreciate all the staff's, in agreement with all of staff's comments so far with regards to buffers, with regards to the parking, and really evaluating that, having the landscaping and the parking, the arborist comments on coverage and tree canopy, as well as landscaping. Let's see, and then stormwater calcs. I did have a question with regards to the post-development and DA post, what was it, DA post routing? What's the difference between those two graphs?
Unfortunately, I'm the wrong person to ask.
Okay, no,
There might be one of the applicants.
I'm trusting that,
Yeah.
that Department of, the DPW,
Yeah.
stormwater is on that, because those calculations look a little bit close, and I would hate for redevelopment to really create a larger problem on that northwest property where the slope goes down and more runoff is created. So I was looking at those graphs and I didn't quite understand the difference between I understand the difference between pre-development and post-development, but I don't understand what DA post-routing was, because that seemed to tweak the graph just enough. So I'm trusting that staff has got that as well.
Ahilu Keifel is the staff person.
We have actually several people that are looking at stormwater staff, so.
It's a lot.
Stormwater.
But sure, would you like to give a little dissertation on that, as you spent so much time on the pre and post scenario here?
Sure.
Yeah,
So
thank
if your question about if you can open sheet number 20 for now, then we're going to move into 21. So
I think you have it there. If you scroll up a little, Jack, it's that's 20, I think.
No, it's.
Yeah, it says 20 there.
This is 19, I think. Yeah, this one.
So this is pre and post.
Yes, okay. So the DA this is how much flow will be generated with the existing condition right now.
Right.
And the post one, if you go to the post down, this is how much flow will be generated without the B&B. If you go to the routing, which is in the next page, the routing, after we implement the B&B, the CN number, which is referred to the surface type, will be reduced. When we use this new CN number that came out of the B&B, the flow will be reduced to this amount. So this is what routing means. Because we implemented the stormwater management, the CN, which is the curve number for the surface soil, will be reduced, and based on that, the flow will be reduced.
But isn't that what post-development is? What are the BPMs that you're using to make the changes in the flow? It's really hard to tell from the lack of detailed plans.
What do you mean lack of details in the plan? Here is the number. You can see the flows. If you can zoom into the big flow, you can compare the number. And if you can move into the next page.
But what is the actual BPM that you're using to mitigate the off-flow?
BMP.
What is the BPM?
Sorry.
BMP, we're using poor asphalt.
Porous asphalt. So is there an extent of the porous asphalt shown on the documents?
It is.
Okay.
If you go up to sheet number the site plan sheet, number 3, I think. 4 or 5, something like this. If you can go down more. More. Yeah, this here. You see this hatch?
So the hatch that is like the honeycomb hatch is,
Yes. This is the
okay.
PPM for yes.
I missed that on a legend. I couldn't see that. Porous concrete pavement. All right. Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
You're welcome.
And we apologize for the confusion. We can go a little further and designate these differences so that a layperson may be able to understand or try to follow what we're trying to communicate with the plan. We understand that there are some deficiencies, and when we did the design and submitted, we found out that the soil itself had some issues. So we were going to make a modification to the stormwater analysis, and we mentioned that to Jeff. So we're in the midst of doing that now. So there will be a modification to that, and hopefully that will make it a little more simplistic and easier.
Yeah, and
Let me ask you a
think
question.
that,
Have you seen that sheet?
Say that again, Bashir?
I'm asking her if she had seen that sheet.
oh, I've got the packet. Yes,
Okay,
I have
it's
it,
already
you know.
called out over there, Boar's concrete pavement.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
I think it's especially important to make it clear what your project is about. You have to assume that somebody else doesn't understand your project when you're creating the drawings. So
Sure,
I do this for a
sure.
living. I distill large sets of documents for very large projects. So in not a lot of time, because I have to pull information out of them. This was very challenging for the scale
Okay.
of project that it is.
Thank you for that information, and thank you for the recommendation. We will utilize it. We kind of pride ourselves on putting together drawings that communicate well, and the mere fact that this did not communicate well to you is a problem for us, so we'll fix that.
Thank you. So also include some floor plans for some understanding of the overall occupancy and the square footage. And I do support the expression of some kind of mural or something on that large, expansive, empty elevation. It's very hard to understand what's going on there. I see lines on it. It looks like those are the demarcation of the floors across the elevation. So I don't think there's any articulation of the materials there, so I think it's important to pay some attention to that, especially since that will be highly visible for the pedestrian environment as well. And we're, of course, wanting to create a unique sense of place in the little city in our comprehensive
Yes.
plan. So I think it's really important that we pay some attention to that detail, that level of detail, especially when we're reviewing the site plan.
Yes, and that information was communicated to us last week, and we have already begun the following day on making those adjustments with the architect based on those recommendations from last week.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
One other question I did have, which was with regards to, again, to the floor plans and the roof plan. It seems like there's an opportunity, is that roof occupiable? Is there an opportunity for a green roof to mitigate some of the stormwater issues that, you know, you're very tight on your calculations, but also to reduce the heat island effect of this property as well?
Yeah, that was, that same question was put out to the architect, and we are exploring that. That will be something that could help in the overall scheme of things, and so pretty exciting to be able to have something like that too.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Okay, I'll start out with a couple of high-level observations. First of all, I mean, this is a local business that wants to expand and stay in the city. So from that perspective, that's a good thing. So, I think we're kind of glad to see that. Unfortunately, with this property and trying to maximize its use, you get this very long, narrow building. It's kind of a shotgun type of appearance. And, with the blank wall on the one side and just windows on the other, it'd be a lot of reaction to a building like this, I think, in the city. But I understand it. That's the lot. The lot is a long, narrow lot, and there's no requirement for setback on the sides. And I think it's 20 feet for both the front setback and the rear setback. And you've kind of maxed out what you can do to do that. So that's what we get, this type of a building. So is it good overall? I think, I would hope that the city could get a better result, but these lots are what they are. So, it's hard to overcome that. A couple of things. Are there any bike racks that are planned for the site?
Yes, they are. And that will be put into the TDM narrative that we'll be putting together. And to your point on the blank wall, I wanted to regress a little back to that. We are looking at the Art Society to try to get an artist to do something with that, because we too do not want that to be just a blank wall. And that was brought out last week
Right.
in the architectural review meeting as well.
Yeah, I heard the AAB comments, so,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good. Let's see. I'm just wondering, Mr. Halloran, have you mentioned CPACE to them as an option, something to be aware of at least? It just, probably is a routine matter just to let people know that, hey, we now have this capability, CPACE, if they are thinking of financing, borrowing money to finance this, CPACE could help them.
Okay. I did not mention that, no.
Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned bike racks. A couple of things that I routinely mention to new developments here in the city is to encourage the developers to pre-wire the buildings for EV chargers. So I'm hoping that some of the spaces that you're putting in will come equipped with electric vehicle charging fixtures.
Yes.
And any other kind of energy efficiency upgrade beyond the building code, would certainly be appreciated as well. I guess I tend not to have as much of an issue with the parking reduction that they're asking for. It's, first of all, 31 is, like I said, it's kind of an arbitrary number. And if they've done studies that show that 24 will accommodate their expected client base, that's probably as good as any information that we usually get in trying to decide what's the appropriate number of spaces. There's a little bit of uncertainty because, as I understand it, you're taking the existing business and then you're adding to it another location, the business from another location, so that creates some uncertainty. I noticed there was a very large London plane tree right at the front. I'm just wondering, since there is that 20-foot setback, do you know, are there plans to keep that tree? Maybe it's even in the city's right away, I don't know.
We would love to keep that tree. We're going to try everything in our power to keep it however we need to do it, whether it be any adjustments or whatever else, but we are looking closely at that. That was something that has been brought up more than 3-4 times. So yes.
Yeah, well, it's in good shape.
Yes, it is.
And we don't have that many street trees along that part of Broad Street that are in good shape, and that one is. So I know you don't want to have a tree in front of your entrance. That's understandable, but hopefully it's back far enough that. I noticed that the trunk on that tree is fairly high, so it does still give, a lot of visibility. So, I'll put my vote in for, I hope you can save it. Let's see if I had any other comments at this stage. it just is going to be a challenge for staff because it seems like there's so many, kind of shortfalls from the code that, there's almost a complete brand-new submission would be made, so. And in turn, I think that makes it challenging for us to have a lot of comments at this stage without seeing what that new, filing will be. I guess that's all I have at this point. Except that I will also agree that a lot of the comments that were made by the Architectural Advisory Board seem to be good ideas to try to make the building a bit more attractive given the dimensions that it has. So thank you.
Yes, thank you too for your comments.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Jeff, has anybody reached, so I know Econize may or may not be actually doing the thing that they already came here with. Do you know if there's been any other outreach about the other two buildings that are in between where this building would be and Econize?
Not to my knowledge. I did just wanted to say too is that when the architect was on with us at the AAB meeting last week, and he did mention that part of the reason that the condition for that facade is to anticipate some type of future redevelopment there in those other parcels. I don't know, the conversations with the owner. I don't know if they know something we don't, but that was the intent on that wall. That way was to anticipate redevelopment of those.
Yeah, I think there's like an opportunity for us to really figure out how to make that all work together instead of you call them bullet buildings? Shotgun buildings. Instead of having four just very long buildings in a row there next to a large apartment building, next to like a way to make that more holistic. I know we are discussing the site plan right now, like about this building. And before we get into like post-site plan conversations about what the look and feel of the outside of the building should be, I think it would be helpful, and from a Falls Church perspective, if we stopped and looked at like, is there a way to combine properties here to make a more holistic, more effective building, reducing curb cuts, making it more pedestrian friendly, biker friendly, things like that. It really does feel like an opportunity in this conversation.
Did you want to respond to that, Mr. Duncan? Go ahead.
I want to say I'm in 100% agreement with that statement, and it's the same question that I asked the Econize folks when we gave approval to their project, and the answer from the owner was, that's just not part of our deal. We're not looking into real estate to that degree. But I guess I would like to hear what the owner thinks about just the concept of a building that has some elements that are a little more what we're aiming for than the garage entrance being on the side of the building. Is the pedestrian entry to the building designed to be on Broad Street, or am I going to get into the dental office by going down the parking alley under the building and then taking an elevator up from the middle of the building?
No, the entrance is to be from Broad Street. Now, we're not the owners.
Yes, I'm conflating personalities, but
Yes, but they are all on board on presenting something that could be appealing and in line with the small area plan and a product that everyone can point to as an example. So they want to do a great job with this so that the board can be happy. The architectural review board can also be happy. The planning commission, everyone can be happy in this case. They want to try their best to supply all needs, and we want to help them to that end. And we make strong recommendations to them, and they listen to those recommendations. So
Okay, well,
what
that's
we heard
good.
last-
I guess go find a couple of comparables in the city that, along Park Avenue, for instance, there's a couple of buildings that have the sort of concept that you're presenting here, shotgun parking and drive-through on the right side, entrance on the left third, that look okay. They're not my idea of a cup of tea, but they're okay. And I think we'd like to see something like that on Broad Street to try to continue the notion of activating the storefronts all along Broad Street, at least with entrances, if not businesses. One housekeeping thing, Jeff, the residential property behind all of this, they're included in the notification, I assume, even though it's residential, not on Broad Street.
Everything within 200 feet of the site gets noticed.
Okay, so just let's make sure that the occupant of the property behind is included. Somebody make that their job so that we don't surprise them, because the questions that were raised about stormwater runoff, I think, are significant enough that if I owned that property, I would be interested in, making sure that whatever was going in on Broad Street was capturing as much of the water before it got to my house than, might otherwise be the case. I think the one thing out of the many pages of staff comments, which were excellent, and I went through them, and the only thing I would call special attention to would be the sanitary sewer line. There was a flag put up that noted that the current use of the property, the 1,000 square foot dental practice, has a certain amount of sanitary outflow, and a project that's substantially bigger is the piping and sanitary sewer structure going to have to be replaced from scratch, or can it somehow be reused and adapted? I don't know, hunch would be that it would need to be restarted from fresh. Is that your impression?
We were thinking that we would calculate the effluent that would come off of the building, which would include the necessary chairs and the regular restrooms, whatever that effluent amount is, gallons per minute. We would make sure that it would not tax the existing sanitary sewer line. So that's something we have not done yet, but we need to do.
Okay, yeah, as falls into the category of things that the staff identified that you're still working on. I also agree with what I heard Jeff say about the staff's impression that this is not going to be the last and final. There's at least another go-round on this. As I understand our process now, though, we won't get another look at it. This is our one shot to communicate to the designated agent. Am I right about that? Or if they resubmit, does the clock start again, and do we get another chance to go into some of the details?
So it's difficult because any resubmission is on a 30-day clock as opposed to 40.
Yeah.
But I think, there's going to be an effort by staff to fit in another meeting with you all if time permits. Especially if there's large changes to what you saw this time. And the same thing goes, what I said to the AAB as well. If there's a lot of changes to the facades, then we'll try to get them back time permitted.
Well, I would appreciate that. I'm glad that I asked if it's a possibility. At least I think some of us would like to take another look at some of the details that are going to be filled out between now and the next round. Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would also mention too is on that 30-day resubmission, because it's so tight, and even tighter than the 40-day that we're on now. I can't guarantee that you're going to have staff comments at that time. Staff may still be reviewing it. We give staff 2 weeks for this round. They just so happen to finish Monday.
Can I ask what I think is a dumb question? Is that 30 business days or 30 calendar days?
30 calendar days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so the plan that's before you, that particular plan has been improved since then, which we have internally, and we will even improve it further based upon the information that we receive tonight. So you will have a significant plan that I hope that will be more clear and easier communicated so that it can be understood.
Thank you. Mr. Kavinsky, go ahead.
So just to clarify, the current submission says that final action will be May 5th, but that's not going to happen at this point. That would be when the designated agent would make his decision, but that's not going to happen. What will happen is there will be a resubmission, and whenever that resubmission happens, there's 30 days from that resubmission. Is that correct?
No, sir. So the designated agent has to make either an approval or a denial by the 5th. So there will be an action at least
see.
by the 5th. Typically, we haven't actually denied a lot of projects in the past. But in this case, if it's not ready to go by 40 days, meaning it's addressed all the comments, then they will be denied. And then a resubmission of the same project would come back. There'd be a resubmission fee, and then that would be on a 30-day clock because it's a resubmittal, not a new application. And then also there is a limit to what staff is able to comment on that resubmittal. Staff is not allowed to comment new things on a new resubmittal. So when we do this first round, we really want to make sure that we get it right the first time.
So if the applicant can resolve all of these issues by May 5th, then the designated agent could, in fact, approve it by May 5th. If not, he would reject it, and then it would start, once the new application comes in, it would start a new 30-day
Yes.
clock.
I'm sorry.
ahead.
So yes, so we're learning as staff too how this 40-day window goes. And you'll remember very recently we just had something on 258 North Washington Street. So we had urged them to come up with a resubmittal, like as you mentioned, before the designated agent date. What had happened in that case was that they did resubmit following your comments, following staff comments. We got that resubmittal about 10 days before the designated agent date. Staff, that is not enough time for them to review re-review the materials before that date. And because of that, there was some confusion then as to what set now are we approving? Are we approving the first one that came through? Are we approving a revised set? So my suggestion going for the future would be that when comments are this lengthy, as they often are for a first submittal, they almost always are, we're not going to suggest that an applicant try to fit in a resubmittal before the date. It's not feasible. We want their second try to be the right one. So I would say that in the case of a site plan that only has maybe labeling errors or small things, then I think it's possible that staff can take a look and say, yep, that stuff was taken care of, and we can get it in before the designated agent action. But when the comments are like this, I don't think that a resubmittal, a quick resubmittal is advised.
No, and with regard to your process, I understand you're trying to fix an airplane while you're flying it, and in the process, you're doing a pretty incredible job keeping the process going.
All right, any other thoughts? I have a few. Well, my colleagues have already covered a lot of the ground that I wanted to ask about, so thank you all for your careful reading. I did want to ask about one thing that hasn't come up, that's water quality. So I think the applicant is proposing purchasing stormwater nutrient credits, offset stormwater offset, nutrient offset credits instead of treating on site. Is that correct? And I guess I'm wondering, does the city have a preference on that? I would imagine we would prefer that people treat on site to improve the water quality that our neighbors are maybe experiencing, or this that is traveling into our streams. So, but we don't have any sort of policy or preference stated.
Not that I know of.
It's either or.
That's.
It might be something that maybe we should think about or talk about as a community. Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. And then how do we confirm that they actually are purchasing these offset credits before the project is approved?
We do ask for, we have.
There's like a
gotten
receipt or
Yeah.
something like that. Okay. I would agree with I actually sent an email to Mr. Matuzik and Mr. Trainer asking where the staff report was for this, because I had a very hard time understanding it. Tip for my fellow commissioners, I don't know how much any of you are using AI, but I just dropped the PDF for the plan into Claude, and it told me lots of things about what was being proposed and some issues that maybe we should think about as a commission. So pro tip, next time, if you're just trying to figure out what's happening, drop it in the Claude. You have to trust but verify. But yeah, so that's one way, but I'm curious why. I know we have this new process, so can we expect as a commission that there will not be staff reports for these kinds of quick turn, 40-day clock projects? Or is there even like a summary, like this is a dental office would have been helpful? Because the use wasn't listed in the site plan, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we are no longer doing the staff reports kind of as you have come to know them for these types of projects, but the letter to the applicant that's attached to the comments, that is like the same format. So that's what we've been using as your staff report.
Okay, yeah, and the letter was helpful. I think you heard a few folks here tonight talk about how it was helpful. I guess, yeah, as a lay person, I don't do this for a living, like Ms. Friedlander, and she had trouble figuring it out. Like, I appreciate that kind of overview of this is what the project is. So maybe that's just some feedback I'll share with our planning director. Understand that staff may not have the capacity to do that, and these timelines are tight, but I think it's really difficult for us to engage with the project. And then I also, maybe also from that perspective, I could see in the sort of timeline, the dates, that you all have been talking about this since November, and there were some pre-meetings, and so I'm assuming that there's a lot of feedback and back and forth before even that first submission is made. And I expect that your goal is to help set the applicant up for success when that first. So feels like we didn't meet that goal this time? No criticism of staff, of course, but just like, what are we doing with this new process for as long as we have it to help set applicants up for a better success the first time?
Yeah, we've always encouraged folks to have a pre-application meeting, but definitely given the 40-day review window, we really start to push it a lot more and even include it as part of our process for a site plan now. And I think a lot of those have evolved a little bit where, it used to just kind of be planning or maybe even economic development that met with an owner or an applicant. Now we've started looping in members of Public Works, of Building Safety, really our whole review staff whenever possible. It is a large group, to sometimes get in a room together.
Coordinate, yeah,
and
for
so,
sure.
And what the applicant has at the time of that pre-application varies. We've had some people who are ready to walk through the door and apply. We've also had some pretty early on conceptual drawings. So it's very difficult to say, what we're going to do every single time. But, we are, trying our best to kind of walk through the process with the applicant, what we're looking for, give early concerns if we have them, if we can possibly know them. But it's difficult, yeah.
Did you have
Well, yeah, one thing, I was listening to the AAB meeting, which was actually kind of helpful because I guess they had successfully gotten some information before they started their discussion, because they seemed to know the kind of a little bit about the building, you know, what was happening, and the fact that it was a dental building and so forth. So, you know, that was good. But the architect during that meeting said he had 2 hours of advance notice to be able to do, you know, various illustrations. And I thought that was odd, you know, that we would only provide, you know, such a short amount of time.
All I can say is that I email and keep apprised all the people who are on the application form. If they don't tell their architect or they don't tell their engineer where to be and when, I can't.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Got it.
I will add to that as well. The architect was emailed immediately the information, but the email address that we had for him was no longer working. So we were wondering why we were not getting any feedback. So we had to call him when it got critical for the meeting time. And that's when we found out that we needed to use a different email address, which we did. And that's why he had 2 hours.
That can happen as well.
Yep. Okay, so I do have a couple comments. Like I know my colleagues would prefer to sort of consolidate these lots. But I guess I'm thinking about like this doesn't require any side setbacks. We're anticipating a party wall. You know, some of the most beloved buildings are those like 1 and 200 block of Broad Street, where you have these like long shotgun buildings, and there is a lot of variety. They're very narrow. So, you know, no guarantees that like these other parcels will redevelop in that same way, but I do like the fact, like Mr. Stevens, that we have a business in the city who's reinvesting in their property and in their business. And, you know, is anticipating similar development down the line. So for me, like, I know there are no guarantees, and maybe we will be looking at hopefully a very lovely mural for as long as it takes for those other parcels to redevelop. But yeah, so I'm actually kind of okay with this long shotgun. It feels like more traditional urbanism to me. It's just kind of standing on its own. For me, though, like the fact that that we're trying to get the parking into this like nice traditional urbanist building really detracts from the sort of street level activation of this parcel. So there's really nothing happening for somebody, walking or driving by, except for the front entrance on the right side. I think it's in the curtain wall, right? That's where the entrance is, beneath the 815. Yeah, it's hard to tell on the drawings that the architect did in 2 hours. But yeah, then the rest of it is just really car access. So I think that's, from a planning commission perspective, that's unfortunate. But I don't know how else you would, with such a narrow site, how else you would accommodate parking. So just an observation from me, not a request. And Mr. Stevens mentioned the bike facilities. Do you know where you might anticipate placing those? Would they be sort of out at the street level, or would they be within the covered parking area beneath the building?
We have not looked at that yet, but we would welcome a recommendation. I would think maybe closer to the street level, but again, that's open for recommendation.
Yeah, I think it should be convenient, close to the entrance, either on like right off of the street there, or in a very I don't even know where you would place it within the garage, because we have all the parking spots. So I think that's probably the only place. What I would not want to see would be parking sort of stuffed in the very back of the lot, so the cyclist would have to ride through the parking area to the rear. For safety reasons.
Yeah.
And just accessibility reasons. Okay, and then I wanted to ask, I couldn't tell from the staff comments, but it sounds like we're not meeting the new tree canopy requirements. Is that correct? Not yet?
No, I don't think we are now.
Okay. So that's...
This might have been
Pre...
Pre.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
Since
that
had
might have
changed
some
since then.
significant impacts on the design, if you need to get 10% tree canopy in here. And then as far as the sort of like landscape buffer, there would be a buffer potentially in the rear of the property, but if we aren't requiring setbacks on the side, there would be no side buffer required, right? It's just the rear?
It would just be the rear, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that is
that's all
not
right.
currently provided either? I didn't see a landscape plan in here, if I missed it.
There is a landscape plan. I think it's on the one of the very
Last
back
two
pages.
pages. The last two pages.
Yes.
Okay. I did see these trees. Okay, so I see a few trees back there,
It's the last one. Yeah, right there.
and then in the front. Okay, all right. Well, I know the arborist noted that, so I think he is on it. I just wanted to understand what the requirements are. So the buffer requirement is in the rear only of the lot?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. I guess the other thing I would hope we could ask for would just be some additional information on the materials, the building materials. Was that included in any part of the plan?
There are written materials on it, on the
Just like
the
brick,
elevations.
glass, but
It
no,
does-
sort of like visual representation of like
No.
this color brick or, yeah.
No, so AAB also asked for that.
Yeah, so more detail on the materials that we anticipate using. I do like the, what is it called? The glass wall, the curtain wall. Yeah, it's kind of cool. Kind of 70s.
Awesome.
Okay. And I guess my other recommendation would be, as you're considering the mural, Falls Church City has a public art advisory board, and they
Yeah,
might be
yeah.
able to make some recommendations. I've captured a pretty long list of recommendations to the designated agent based on our discussion. Do you want me to should I read that back? Do we need to do the comments tonight, or that's been our practice. Jack, is that right? Are there any other comments or suggestions, questions for the applicant? Yep.
Just a quick comment. I mean, the shape and the scale of this is very similar to the Meeting House and
Yeah,
Godfrey's.
I was
and
looking at that.
When I first saw that, I was
It's wider, though.
it's-
Godfrey's has more room.
It has a little
Yeah.
bit more room to squeeze that driveway to
Yeah.
the back to get that parking, but it might be worth taking a look at that because I think that's a pretty successful
That would be
redevelopment of an existing.
Much more preferred
too.
than the parking over, what do they call that?
The overhang?
No,
The overhang or the,
Sorry, no, that style where you put your parking in the bottom level of the building. It's like common in like beach communities or something. What's that?
I don't know what it's called. It's like
Tartar's mentioned it before. He doesn't like it. I just can't remember the term.
Yeah, I'm learning Tartar's feet.
Yeah, I don't
you be
like
so-
it either from a sort of planning, like creating a space that people want to spend time in,
Would you give us an address of the meeting house?
It's 2
location?
doors down, I think, from you.
just on the other side of
Godfrey's.
Godfrey's
Mellows.
Bakery.
Broadmont.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was just recently renovated. It's a hotel, which is the meeting house, and Godfrey's is the bakery, and yeah.
Across the street from Solas or the,
Solace, yeah.
Gotcha. Yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh,
Okay, should I read back the list that I have here? Maybe y'all can tell me what I missed. I was trying to take notes as everybody was talking. Are you ready, Jack? Okay, so how are we setting this up? In making its advisory, planning commission has the following recommendations, comments.
Maybe should we just go by topic first?
Sure.
We just want to get the list out there and then refine the language after that.
Yeah, that's fine. So, I said, like, we'd like to request a table with the current parking and utilization to determine if the proposed parking is sufficient for the expanded use of the dental office. That's what I heard from Mr. Duncan, and
Just basic occupancy as well and square footage would be helpful.
Right, I think it was the total number of chairs.
yeah, include floor plans.
Yep.
Floor plans and total number of chairs to understand usage
It
needs,
was-
or?
You could figure that out from the floor plan?
Yeah, I think the floor plan probably gives us enough, but it's using chairs as a proxy for.
Okay, so floor plans
Traffic.
to understand usage, intended usage, or something like that. Or just floor plans, it's fine. Okay, sorry. Let's see, I had we'd like to, the mural, we'd like to request a mural on the blank wall, the blank future party wall on the northwest elevation. We need to designate a location for bicycle parking and ensure it is easily accessible. More detail on building materials. There was a recommendation or a question about whether a green roof could be considered to mitigate heat. And then we need to confirm the applicant is meeting tree canopy requirements and landscape buffer and parking lot landscaping requirements. Anything else? What else? What did I miss?
Free wire for some EV charging stations. I should start that out by saying recommend.
Yeah, these are recommendations.
Yeah.
I think it's fine. They're going to the designated agent anyway, not for his consideration.
Right.
Anything
Okay.
else that?
Sure. In more detailed building materials, I'd like to say building elevations and renderings as well with
Yeah.
color, so that we can kind of see what those materials are intended to be, and how they fit with the environment. And addressing, I would say stormwater, addressing all the stormwater, sanitary, and, runoff and water quality concerns.
Yeah, I mean, building is larger than this, but still, this is a building of pretty good size. They've had underground capture basins to help with stormwater, peak stormwater, and I don't think that's part of the plan for this one, so the approach of having porous concrete is, we'd like to know more about how that's really going to work. And maybe an example of where it's used to give us confidence that it can work.
Sorry, I missed that first part, Mr. Duncan. What was the first part?
How would you summarize it?
Basically what
Phil?
Ms. Friedlander said.
Oh.
Just listen to her. Stormwater
Okay,
management,
so-
stormwater and effluent management.
Do we need a comma after stormwater? Stormwater, comma, sewer, and,
Stormwater management, and you're good. Stormwater management and quality, right?
yeah.
Can we add to something about the activation of the pedestrian streetscape a
Yeah.
little bit? Thank you.
Anything else? So they notify all the surrounding, anybody that abuts the property, so the rear, yeah,
Anyone in 200 feet.
in
is-
200
is the
feet,
rule,
in
yeah.
any direction, 360
Every
degrees,
direction, yeah.
like, yeah. I think we can trust staff on that. You can go knock on their door. Okay. For the green roof recommendation, whose recommendation was that, or question? Yours? Do you want to flesh that one out a little bit?
where is it?
It's a
Yeah,
second-
recommend a green roof to, I think it was more as a mitigational measure to mitigate stormwater issues,
Runoff.
right? And also to mitigate a heat island effect, right? Like you're,
So green roof-
it's killing two birds with one
Green
stone.
roof to mitigate stormwater.
Is it a recommendation to include?
To
Include,
consider-
yeah.
Yeah, to include or consider, yeah.
To mitigate the stormwater
Yeah,
runoff and the heat island effect.
yes. Thank you, Mr. Zhang.
One more thing, Madam Chair, if I may.
Please, could you come to the microphone?
Yeah.
One more issue, I think one more issue is very important. During the discussion, which I heard and taken note, is about share access easement. Actually, under the city's subdivision code, a subdivision regulation, all the easement had to show on the final plat. That's the reason we have that, case before this. We had to change the final plat because of the easement changes. And then in this case, I heard the applicant mention they want to vacate the share easement. I think they didn't have any subdivision application, and then they cannot do that. So they had to tell us what's they're going to do with the easement, share easement, because initially to share with the adjacent property. Now, if they want to vacate it, they had to have the approval from the planning commission.
Okay, thank you. So let's see, where should we add that? Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Zhang.
And just to be clear, we were only talking about the vacation on the subject property, not the other properties.
Yes, and this had to be evaluated with the original share access. You can't just on one side you want to vacate but we had to look into the why we have that shared access easement established in the
Correct.
first place.
Correct. Correct.
So maybe, is it applicant's request to vacate shared easement would require subdivision amendment? A subdivision approval?
Research as to how that came about is one.
Yeah. Applicant's request for vacation of access easement.
Needs to be examined.
I do, yeah, I'd like to work the word subdivision in there if that is a potential, because that's a bigger, applicant's request for vacation of access easement.
That requires
May require subdivision approval? Yeah, okay. That implies that we will need some
Yeah.
research.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Okay, so again, these are our recommendations to the designated agent, Matt Matuzak, who's the planning director in Falls Church City. Anything else that we missed?
I just want to make sure kind of all the language, because that's ultimately what you'll be voting to send to the designated agent is the language.
I think maybe mural on party wall, northwest elevation is essential.
Can we add that to investigate public art or local artists or,
Yeah,
what's the commission?
maybe we can,
Humanity?
Yeah,
encourage,
yeah.
including mural on party wall, northwest elevation in consultation with, what is it? The Arts and Humanities Council, with the Arts and Humanities Council.
Yes, and you'll be happy to know that we've already started that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, Godfrey's has a mural too, by the way, if you go check out that building. They did install one because they are a very long, narrow building, and they had a very big blank wall. Actually, about half the size of yours vertically, I think. Well, maybe not. How many stories is, no, yeah.
It's a couple stories. This one needs a person with a big row of teeth.
Yeah, well, I don't know, like, that might be getting into our sign ordinance territory,
Just
Tim.
Just kidding.
Brilliant idea.
I do like the Bike-Kinetic mural, though.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah. Okay.
Probably a grammar issue here, but on the next page, one down, just since these are recommendations, just instead of saying recommendation to, just say consider including.
Yeah. Okay, it's a pretty,
So, Madam Chair, could I
Yep.
ask one more question?
sure.
So what do we do tonight when I go home and somebody asks? I'm saying that we took as deep a dive as time permits into this application for a new building and have a number of bulleted recommendations to the designated agent. I also heard, I think, everyone, don't let me speak for you, but say that we concur with staff's current assessment that as the application is before us now, it is not ready for final approval and that a resubmittal would be expected. Is that
I would
an
agree.
accurate way to portray what we've done tonight?
I would agree with that. I think that's.
Especially with the staff comment letter and all the extensive,
If that could be memorialized just to make,
Yeah,
If I can suggest something, usually what we do with the AAB at least is we say that the AAB recommends a project with these comments, or doesn't recommend with these comments, so.
yeah, that's what I
think
don't
that's
want.
what we're asking.
That's what I don't want to do. I agree, you're right, and that's
Okay.
why I brought it up, because when I read the AAB minutes, I thought, oh, AAB thinks it's okay. And
yeah.
that's
I don't know
not-
that we know enough about it at this point to recommend it or
Their
not.
scope is much smaller than yours.
Yeah, exactly. No, I understand what they did was right for them, but based on what the chair just said, I at least would not be able to vote to approve the concept or whatever we call what
If
we
all of
have
these
before
things
us.
were addressed.
If all these things were addressed, maybe then, it would be ready to bake. I'm just suggesting that that language somehow be included in the documents that we have.
Could you scroll up, Mr. Trainer? What's the top of this document? Discuss several topics. Okay, you're going to fill in the topics, right, Mr. Trainer? Okay.
So what is the?
I think it's at the bottom, but it's really, the motion is just about sending the comments and recommendations to the designated agent. That's all the motion does. So, but I like Mr. Duncan's, the planning commission's general sense was that this project was not ready for approval. Like capturing that explicitly, maybe even as like a separate, this document is malleable. Can we scroll back up?
we need, can we do something like we support the need to identify, to fulfill the shortcomings that the staff has identified, maybe better words than that, but in other words, supporting staff's observation that there's a lot of things yet to be done.
Be at the top of all our list of recommendations, that's kind of like the part of the
summary,
lead
sort of.
into our recommendations, like that we agree with staff's process and that this is not quite ready for approval as a project, but with these recommendations, a resubmittal. Yeah.
Mr. Zhang, did you?
Madam Chair, yes, thank you. If I may, I would suggest just go up. This paragraph will be listing the topics. Basically, this paragraph will be filled out by Jack according to the topic we have. At the very end of that paragraph, we can say something like, due to lack of sufficient information, and the Planning Commission believe a resubmittal is necessary in order to have a complete review, something like that.
Yeah,
At the end, after the topics. And then at the same time, after that, you can have this recommendation as well.
Yeah, that's the exact placement I was thinking of, Mr. Zhang, so thank you.
This part acts as like a mini, like a bridged version of the meeting minutes.
Okay.
Even, right? So like even the meeting minutes will be a little more detailed, but here we'll just capture the topics. But I think that's a great suggestion that this could include that specific suggestion on the.
So could we make that like a separate paragraph? It wouldn't be part of that bullet, Jack, but it would be a new paragraph separate from the next one. And it would say, Mr. Zhang, you just had some really nice language. Can you remind us of the language that you just suggested?
After that.
Not a bullet, Jack, but sorry, a separate.
It's a
Yes,
new
there you go.
sentence started. Basically said, the planning commission believe the current submittal does not have sufficient information for a complete review, and they're expecting the resubmittal in future. And then after that, you still have the
Yes.
list issue and recommendations. How about that?
So just getting back to this process issue, it may not be a resubmittal. In other words, if the applicant can provide all of these recommendations by May 5th, then it wouldn't be the resubmittal, right?
Well, actually, given the long list of the issue, they had to have the submission because this is not complete set, basically. If you look at the issue, the bullet point we listed here, it's not a complete submission.
So the city will likely reject this application and start the 30-day clock over.
Yeah, by
When
the
they
May
resubmit.
5th, with so many issues outstanding, I think most likely, I can't speak for the DA, but most likely will be rejected.
It'd be pretty hard to approve it with a long list of deficiencies, so.
Yeah, given they asked for the waiver of parking without any TDM, that's non-starter, basically. So most likely, yeah.
Does that language jive with your intention, Mr. Duncan? Any edits or?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, we do encourage a resubmission. We're interested in the project. We know that a lot of work has already been done, and we appreciate
Agreed.
the applicant. Good faith effort has been made and will continue to be made on both sides to see if we can come to agreement. So I would keep it simple and just say we recommend a resubmission.
Thank you. And maybe that's something that we can make part of the template going forward? Just what's the general, position of the commission
Yeah.
on the project? It may be that we're in disagreement. I guess we can cross that bridge later. But can you scroll down, sorry, in our recommendations one last time? I just want to look through them one more time. The street activation one, how do we capture that? Activation of pedestrian streetscape. I want to say something like, yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, any other, we have a stray bullet at the end.
Got a hand raised.
Oh, yes, go ahead, sorry.
I just have a question for clarity with the green roof. Is the green roof a requirement, or is it something that we can consider looking at to determine if it benefits the overall project, or is this a requirement?
It's a consider. And and these are just to be clear, these are our recommendations to the designated agent.
Okay.
And he will decide which of these he carries forward to the applicant.
Sure.
But yeah, we're recommending, because I know sometimes structurally, those can be quite heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it may or may not be possible, but they can make a big difference, and they could really help with some of the stormwater
Yes.
issues that have already been identified.
Yes.
It's a lot of space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you, Mr. Zhang.
Yes, thank you, Henry and Jeff. Okay. If there are no other changes, Jack is going to fill in the topics just based on this discussion. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve our recommendations?
Yeah, I can do that. I move that the Planning Commission provide the above recommendations, comments regarding the 815 West Broad Street redevelopment site plan, munis number 2026-0147, and transmit them to the designated agent for consideration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Kravinsky with the second. Okay, and a roll call vote, please, when you're ready. Mr. Trainer.
Okay. Mr. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Friedlander?
Yes.
Mr. Kravinsky?
Yes.
And Chair Comont?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Great. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you to the applicant team for being with us. Appreciate it.
And thank you, Chair Cummins.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hollern.
Thank you.
And Mr. Zhang. Appreciate you both. Okay. And then you'll fill in the motion pass 6-0. Okay, thank you, Jack. All right, so that brings us to our information items. We're running a little ahead of schedule. Any commissioner reports?
I guess we could attended the EDA meeting last week, and there was lots of discussion on Virginia Village. And a lot of it had to do with some concerns within the EDA membership over the viability of the project, I guess. That would be my description. Maybe they would choose different words. They were also concerned about the size of the money that was being set aside to engage a consultant. So, I mean, it's mostly, I think, internal discussion within the EDA, and I got the sense that it wasn't the end of the discussion, it was kind of midstream, so that's why I was a little hesitant to get into to very much detail, but anyway, it was very entertaining discussion, so maybe worth going back and listening to it if you have a chance, yeah.
Mr. Duncan?
Midstream seems like an excellent way to put it, I would say. How many of us have been to one or the other of the Virginia Village public availability situations? Good, okay.
I haven't been yet. Yeah.
The most recent one was last night at Columbia Baptist. Interesting that as they have gone on, they have collected more people in attendance, which is a little unusual and good. Word seems to be getting out that this is a, concept that we're seriously pursuing, and that obviously 9 quads of the 20 have already been put into city's hands, and so something has to happen. Since Matt is away tonight, I won't speak for him, but I thought he did a very good presentation last night to a crowd that included a number of people who reside in the Virginia Village quads now, as well as other neighbors and others from the community. And the takeaway that I took was that there's going to be some disruption, and we might just as well be candid about that and upfront with the community of folks who live there, that if we do nothing, the non-city-owned quads are going to be redeveloped by their private owners at whatever schedule suits the private owners, with whatever buildings suit the private owners' pocketbooks, and the current residents would be displaced. If we pursued some sort of comprehensive redevelopment situation with all the 4 acres and all the quads, it would be a heavy lift. It would take some number of years, but it would have the advantage of enabling the city to help the current residents with relocation and assistance returning to the property once it's redeveloped. I thought that was an interesting point. Anyway, I would encourage folks to try to go to one of the upcoming events. I guess this is coming to us during the month of June. Jack, you would know what date we are formally supposed to hear about where things stand.
Yep, that's in the look ahead. It's one of the things I wanted to specifically call out. So your next meeting actually is reserved, or at least is the only item on the agenda. We have it scheduled to actually be a joint work session with the Housing Commission. We've reserved the Dogwood room for that. Typically, these meetings are sort of better suited for the Dogwood room than Chambers. And that meeting will largely be a kind of synthesis of the feedback that we heard across the 4 community meetings we held in March and April. And so so that'll be, again, a summary, excuse me, of that feedback heard, and then we'll have, also a summary of the current guidance that was presented to the community in the comprehensive plan and the small area plans, and just kind of introducing that to both of those boards, you all, and the Housing Commission. And then later in June is when we've mapped out returning with actual draft amendments to the small area plans, reflecting both the feedback we heard at those community meetings and from you all.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good submission. So as part of the meeting prep for that session, the document that we've been handed when we went to these sessions will be included in the packet, and you can see sort of the 4 categories and what people have said, and like you said, what degree of range of opinion or consensus has been reached, and then we can roll up our sleeves and talk about it. The only additional fact that would be nice to know, there was at the table that I was at last night at least, there's a lot of interest in the Quinn building and how's the Quinn building coming and how tall is the Quinn building, because of course it's going to be the cross-street neighbor of whatever happens at Virginia Village, even if nothing happens. And so I know that's operating on its own separate track, but it would be useful, helpful if people could visualize what's going to be across the street from Virginia Village in the form of one of your posters had the picture of the building as the Quinn building is supposed to look. Just make sure that's current and include that in the circulation.
Okay. Yeah, we can certainly do that. I'll also point out that the Quinn renderings are still on the project webpage, so the project webpage for that development still has a lot of good information, including some renderings that actually show it to scale with Virginia Village.
Good.
And so there's some renderings that have like a Google Street view of Virginia Village with a 2-scale rendering of the Quinn development, kind of superimposed on that.
Good.
So we can definitely include those in the materials.
I'd forgotten that, yeah.
But I'd also put a plug in for that project page too.
That's helpful because several of the people that I spoke with at the meeting last night were not aware of just how much open space there was going to be at Quinn's, and that that was going to be available for people who live in Virginia Village to wander over and take advantage of it.
Thank you, Jack. The fundamental, discussion as it emerged, at least from the meetings that I went to, returns to what we've heard so many times before here over the years, which is, do we have dedicated housing for folks whose incomes range from 30 to 80 AMI, as part of a comprehensive redevelopment, or do we basically just take the buildings that are there now and spend the money to rehab them, I suppose? I mean, most of them are 80 plus years old, so there's a lot involved in that. But there are those at the table that I sat at and others that I listened to who prefer that alternative, so we need to have a community discussion about what's the best use of that 4 acres of land, which is a significant amount of land, and to what degree do we use that land to express our values that affordable housing is a pressing need here, and it needs to be included in a discussion with height and traffic and all the other considerations that come into play when we redevelop anything anywhere. Anyway, it's a good discussion to have. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are there going to be more of those public outreach meetings after our next work session, or like, are there any more planned? I know there were 2.
So we've had 4 actually to date. We had 2 in March, and that was labeled as a visioning exercise about kind of pie in the sky. What do you kind of see for this site? Obviously, with some history on how the city's posture has been in the last couple of years in acquiring the properties for the purpose of expanding and redeveloping new affordable housing there. And then the 2 April meetings that we had yesterday and last Saturday were, this is what we heard, or what we think we heard. And those were broken up into categories on things about urban design and neighborhood compatibility, open space and accessibility, different uses, and then housing and density. So we had the feedback broken down into those 4 kind of themes, and we had again just kind of a summary of based on the notes that we all took that were facilitating those conversations, compiled them, and that's how we kind of presented the feedback, saying this is what we thought we heard. How does that look and sound to you? And so we had a lot of, as Mr. Duncan pointed out, especially last night's meeting, we had a lot of new participants. And so there was a lot of initial reaction, which was fine, which is great. I think we've continued to reach people as outreach has continued. And so that's how those 4 meetings were conducted. We have those 4 were with the general public. We had back in February an initial outreach session to Virginia Village residents specifically. And we have another one that we're scheduling for either next week or the week after that to catch up specifically with Virginia Village residents. So that'll be not public, accessible to the larger public, but a more targeted approach. We also went to a brunch session with some Winter Hill residents. They have a standing kind of brunch meeting in their clubhouse that we attended, and that was a lot of fun. So we've had several public outreach moments. So we're kind of moving now into the Board of Commissions phase. And that's specifically with the small area plans. Following that, we'll need to identify any zoning amendments that may need to happen to actualize and realize the feedback that we got in amendments to those plans. That'll be a future step. But as far as the small area plan amendments go, we're moving into that board and commission public meeting phase.
Okay, no, thank you, and I apologize, I wasn't able to make either of those, and I must have slipped past me those other 2 that you were talking about. So I do appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to more. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Trainer, I know that summary of what we heard will be included in the work session items, but could you share that with the commission, with the rest of the commissioners? Because it sounds like 2 folks, I can see they have the materials, but the rest of us don't, who weren't able to attend. Could you share that just as an email out to the commission?
The materials? Sure.
That summary that you were referencing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I actually have one, I don't know if it's a request or maybe it's a question, but wondering, the mention of 258 North Washington made me wonder if there's a way that, if projects are changing or is there a way that the commission can kind of be apprised of how things are proceeding in this new world?
Because that's been denied, right?
Yeah,
258 was denied.
I don't know for certain. I actually don't want to speculate
Okay.
because I don't know for certain.
Yeah, and they submitted some new elevations. I think they shared them with the AAB, so it'd be good if those could be
Yeah.
shared with us as well.
I know Jeff was just talking about there was some confusion about how to handle a resubmission.
Right.
So I can check on the status of both or that second submission and, yeah.
And then just,
send an
I'm not
update
sure
around.
what our protocol should be for kind of keeping the commission in the loop as things move along. Not all the way through, but I don't know.
Headlines.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even, I'd like to know, we are giving these recommendations to the designated agent. If he's making approval, if he's approving, like which of our recommendations is he accepting or taking, forward to the applicant and which is he not? I think it would help us make better recommendations to him. And maybe understanding a little bit of the rationale for what he maybe does or doesn't bring forward. So yeah, just closing the loop a little bit on some of these projects, because previously, like when we approved the site plan, that was it, and then we went and got built, and now we're giving these recommendations, but then we don't really hear anything. So that's really what in some way where it's not a ton of work for staff, ideally. Any other requests?
Just one other thing, to the look ahead, when the General Assembly is finally finished for the year, let's remember to give us a briefing on whatever housing measures they settled on and how that might affect the city.
Is that something that Cindy would do, Ms. Mester? Yeah. Would be helpful. If Ms. Mester could come, if she does this kind of briefing, or, I think if she does this for council, then maybe we can watch the council meeting to have her not have to come out twice, but I'd be interested in a lot of different elements, transportation, energy, anything that we should be apprised of that would impact our work here. Okay. Any other requests, questions? No? Okay. I don't think we have any correspondence, and there's no director's report tonight, correct?
Correct.
All right, then I think we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.